salutations, what it do? It's Dr. Gamer, all father Do-Rag Gang. Hope you guys enjoyed the world premiere of my brand new intro. I put it together last night, had a ton of fun with it. So you know the vibes, like and subscribe, and let's jump right into this video. So a bunch of you asked me to do an update to my Black Panther build. I released my first one pretty much the day after it came out. It was melee focused, and at the time I thought this was kind of going to be the mode that you wanted to build Black Panther if you're going the melee route. And so far that's pretty much held up true, but since then I've found better gear pieces to best utilize Black Panther. I know a bunch of you were looking for a Black Panther build in particular because his broken chest piece was fixed. So I did a gear video showing you some stuff you want to look for Black Panther to make you feel more powerful, and some of that made it into this final build video. So you know how I usually do these things. I'll go through the skills, I'll go over the gear, and then we'll get into some more gameplay. So skills haven't changed too much from the first time around. I have made a few adjustments, mostly here. For the support, I have Colonial Blast. Recovery beads provide additional offensive capabilities, targeting nearby enemies with bolts of energy. So of course, the Colonial Blast is support. If you press L1 for the support, he does more stun and offensive based beads. If you hold it, you get the healing and recovery for yourself and your team. But normally if you do the recovery, you won't get any offensive capabilities out of it. So Colonial Blast gives you the best of both worlds. You get some offense as well as healing. And to supplement that, I added Shadow Physics. It extends the duration of the beads essentially by 10 seconds, whether you're doing the more offensive portion or the recovery portion. I preferred that over these two, though Colonial Bombs is decent, especially if you have a little bit more valor. And what happens is it targets enemies, and then if you just hold the D-pad to your left, it will detonate. Pretty good damage, but I prefer the extended duration of the beat. Assault Heroics, pretty much the same. No More Mercy and Your Father's Son. No More Mercy gives you 3 Vibranium Spears. Your Father's Son gives you 10% intrinsic meter every time an enemy is hit with the spear. So they patched the trick I showed you in the last video where you can dodge cancel out of this No More Mercy by holding R1 and then using dodge to cancel it and still keep your heroic charge. You can still hold it, so it's useful if you're trying to just be invulnerable, but you can no longer dodge cancel out of it because Crystal Dynamics does not like us having fun. Ultimate, I've changed this a bit. I've gone with Adored Ones. This lets you summon 2 Dora Milaje to battle with you. I prefer that over Panther's Roar. The damage reduction and increase hasn't really done much for me personally, and on top of that, it only affects enemies that are marked by the initial ultimate in the first place. So I prefer Adored Ones. They are actually pretty useful. They distract the enemies and they deal some decent damage. And I have History is Shared. Triggering the ultimate heroic will grant all nearby heroes a burst of energy that will fill their intrinsic meters. Now, when I first saw this, I thought this might only apply to allies, but this does in fact apply to Black Panther. As soon as you pop your ultimate with this equipped, you will have your whole intrinsic meter refilled, so you can immediately go into overcharge, do your percussive blast. It's quite good. Over on the mastery side, I haven't changed anything. Panther's Pride increased the critical attack chance of light combo finishers by 15%. The rest of these aren't really very relevant. Air melee combo boost. You can increase the impact of your signature attack, but not worth it. This one I have Make Way, increases the damage of all sprint, dodge, and wall attacks by 10%. I use the running sprint, is heavy, a lot. So this definitely comes in handy. I definitely recommend using more of these attacks if you haven't already. They're very good. So the 10% helps. Of course, Heroic Spirit, takedowns give you a heroic orb. Put that on all your heroes. Ranged, I got Final Flourish, increase the amount of times the devastating dagger debuff can stack by 1%. Now, because of my gear piece, I think I'd rather actually go to a kinetic dagger, explosive present, swap out the dagger thrown in a range combo finisher with a kinetic dagger. Pretty straightforward. When you do the dagger combo, the last one will be a kinetic dagger instead of your regular devastating dagger. Rest, pretty much the same. Armor piercing, increase the effect of devastating dagger debuff by 30%. Increase the critical attack damage dealt from all daggers by 10%. Intrinsic ability, I got kinetic absorption, builds up a small amount of intrinsic energy on each successful melee attack. Does just a little extra melee, just a little extra intrinsic beater. Doesn't hurt at all. The rest of these aren't really relevant. Eternal Drum, increase the amount of intrinsic energy gained when blocking or parrying attacks by 20%. I'm pretty decent at blocking and parrying, so this definitely helps. And increase the damage dealt by all heavy intrinsic attacks by 10%. I do the heavy intrinsic a lot, so definitely notice that one. Danger of the Wind, increase the damage of the kinetic burst from Custom Blast by 15%. Cool Vibrations, increase the critical attack chance by 10% and critical attack damage by 10% during the overcharge buff. And Nation's Hero, defeating an enemy while the overcharge buff is active, has a 10% chance to drop a heroic orb. You can pretty much pick anything you want on this one. They really don't matter all that much. If you want to get the 20% chance for intrinsic orb rather than a 10% chance for the heroic orb, that's fine too. Doesn't matter. In the champion system, I'm still getting some more points together, but same thing. The champion system does not work properly. So focus on the trees that I have put most of my points towards, which are critical attack damage, critical attack chance, heroic charge rate, and perk chance boost. Those are the ones that currently work, and they do make an impact on your build. I'm also be doing fortification, but these trees right here are the priority. Don't do anything over here. They still don't work. Now, over to the gear. So you see my stats. I made this very much a melee build. Got 392 might, no precision, 103 proficiency, 164 valor, 119 resolve, and 61 intensity. And my heroic charge rates are all 17.8%. Now, the reason why I don't have more heroic is because Black Panther's heroics, I don't know if it's a bug. I'm pretty sure it's a bug, but adding more valor does not do really anything for Black Panther, especially if you're using his Salt Heroic King's Mercy. Stacking valor literally does nothing. I've gone up to about 10k valor with buffs and it does nothing. So I'm pretty sure that's a bug, but I don't really rely on his heroics anyway. So I just have some extra valor just for the increase to critical attack damage, but you don't need to go overboard here. So for the actual gear, on the melee side, we got Pym's Minute Unit. This is one of the ones I featured in my video. You can get this from the Wakanda gear vendor. Got a decent roll, might, intensity, proficiency. Brazen Pym payload, 34% chance a melee crit will activate a Pym payload on the enemy target. And Powerful Blizzard, power attacks inflict cryo damage. Now with this piece alone, you can battery affect an enemy to death. It's crazy. So the Pym payload triggers on a melee crit, which can be any of your melee attacks. In my experience, his running heavy, his sprint heavy does crit a lot. And when you crit, they'll be filled with Pym and they'll shrink. That's all it takes. You don't have to build up gradually. Just one crit, they're filled with Pym. And then your power attack, which is your pounce, you can just then follow up with the pounce and it will apply cryo. You don't have to use the daggers at all here. You can just literally pounce, melee, and you will be doing battery effect. It's really good. And as a bonus, you got 15% reduced cost of intrinsic attacks. I do use intrinsic attacks a lot, so that does come in handy. Alternatively, you can go with Faultless Vibranium Payload. 43% chance melee crits will activate a Vibranium payload. And on top of that, the heavy combo finishers activate Vibranium. If you say had Sonic on your daggers, I would recommend swapping out with the Vibranium payload. The point is just make sure you're with this build, you're doing opposite status effects with your dagger and your melee. Now over to the range slot, we've got Hive Mind Sheath. I mainly got this for the stats, but the perks are pretty good as well. Ranged attacks with devastating daggers deal particle damage. That means every dagger throw will deal particle damage, all of them. Now, as a bonus, ranged attacks with the kinetic dagger deal particle damage. So normally, if I only had it on devastating daggers, I would just have to mark off devastating daggers in the skill tree and just use those. But because I also get it on kinetic daggers, I get the added benefit of using kinetic daggers and still get PIM on all of my dagger throws. As a bonus, PIM Potentiator, increase the amount of particle damage dealt with any attack by 20%. And like I said, this is not a range focused build, but the extra damage does help. And mainly you're using this to apply more of that battery effect, get them filled with PIM, and then start pouncing. Pretty straightforward. Alternatively, you can go with Sonic if you want to go Vibranium on your melee slot. I recommend Targeted Buff and Targeted Spark if you're going that route. And the key thing you want here is Devastating Scream. Range attacks with devastating daggers deal sonic damage. That's what you're looking for on any of these pieces. I would be using them if they had the stats that I wanted. Unfortunately, you still can't modify your gear in any way. You can't change your stats or your perks. So if you do equip one of these, you are going to be sacrificing some of your melee damage. Ideally, I would like to have some might and proficiency in Valor on this piece, but in the meantime, this one gets the job done. On the chest slot, my replacement for the broken chest piece, Nahana's armor, still reactive buff. Very important. If you don't have a targeted buff on this slot, you want to have a way to consistently get your damage buff going. So if you don't have it here, you have to have it here. And I got a okay stat roll. Might, proficiency, and Valor. I wish the Valor was a little higher, but still pretty good roll. And I also get a bonus spin armor, 50% reduction in heroic energy drain, and 25% reduction in damage from attacks. And in the heroic slot, we got powerful Blitz Cowl. I'm still looking for a better piece, but this is the stat combination that I like. I am not feeling the exotic that I had here. Not really noticing much difference there. So I opted for the better stats. 16.3% increased damage from power attacks. That is your pounce. 32% chance activating support horror grants a willpower burst irrelevant. Berserker Sparks successfully lands 16 attacks in rep session without taking damage. Grants a heroic charge burst. Does come up. I can do a lot of hits between the daggers and the melee combos, so getting that extra charge rate to your heroics does not hurt. Over with the minor artifacts, of course, I got my favorite ISO 8 of Cosmic Affinity, and I got a decent roll of Might and Resolve. The main thing you want here is Reactive Cosmic Surge. 16.2% chance taking any damage grants the Cosmic Surge buff. Dealing damage while the buff is active restores a small amount of willpower and heroic energy. I have this on every build that I use competitively. It's incredibly good. Just taking damage will recharge your willpower, recharge your heroic energy. This is especially good for a character like Black Panther that's always in the mix in melee range. And it's also great when you're in the Tachyon Rift or the Omega level threat, because of those modifiers for the level, you're constantly taking damage. So the cosmic affinity is constantly going off, giving you more willpower, more heroic energy. It's awesome. And the last one, I just have a red ISO 8, the triple might. The perks aren't really relevant here, but I do get some extra stun damage from the pound. And here I have the Sacred Nornstone of Lethal Will, of course. Extra 4 seconds on my damage buff. 6.8% increased critical attack chance when the damage buff is active. Pretty much the best major artifact in a game. Alternatively, you can go with the Tactagon, since this build does do a lot of status damage, but I prefer the damage buff from the Nornstone because having a double damage buff stack is still pretty nutty in this game. That is the build. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. It can be applied to pretty much every piece of content in this game. Because of the PIM payload, you can actually be of use in the Super Adaptoid fight because you can easily apply status damage without just relying on your daggers and without trying to do like a light combo finisher or a heavy combo finisher. That's just way too slow to try on the Super Adaptoid. Whereas with this build, you can just do a sprint heavy, boom, particle damage, or just throw the daggers. All of them will deal status. Very effective. I enjoyed it a lot. If this video helps you out, make sure you like and subscribe. Keep supporting your boy. We are almost at 6,000 subs. If you could help me reach there, that would be amazing. Ideally, we're trying to hit 10K subs by the end of this year. If we do, I will be giving away a PS5. So if you're into that, keep supporting. Now I'm going to leave you with some gameplay. I'm Sadat the Gamer, signing out.
The Abomination clone is defeated.